Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Bud Light. Bud Light has ruined their business. Their sales have never recovered. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. You know, not only have their sales not bounced back on Bud Light, they're down about 30% by volume nationally. Budweiser is down about 25% nationally. There are other brands down as well. Not as bad, but still down. Anheuser-Busch, the company that owns Bud Light, is now announcing they're going to spend, the numbers that I've added up are around $4.5 billion over the next year to try to save the Bud Light brand and generally save their company and try to get the stock price back up, because the stock price is still down over $20 billion. From the Daily Mail, Bud Light's parent company sees revenue tumble 13.5% in the third quarter as fallout from Dylan Mulvaney controversy continues, with the CEO saying company will now try to win back customers at college football and concerts. But of course, they can't just win people back at college football and concerts. Very serious issue when it comes to selling physical merchandise that's not ordered online. A lot of us buy a lot of our things online. Beer is not really something you buy online. You either buy it as an off-premise sale where you would pick it up at the supermarket, or you buy it as an on-premise sale where you would drink it when you go to the concert or drink it when you go to a restaurant. Because of the lack of popularity of Bud Light and the damage that they've done to their brand with the on-premise sales, such as restaurants, their popularity has dropped severely nationally. In some cases, it's dropped 70 to 90% in the southern United States, but in a lot of places, it's dropped 40, 50%. Big numbers. So in a restaurant where they have taps, a lot of those taps for Bud Light have been switched out for other beers that people are actually interested in. And the threats to Bud Light's shelf space right now are very serious. You can't just win that back. It's very difficult to get stores to allocate space to any kind of products. That's why Anheuser-Busch is willing to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to UFC. They're willing to pay $150 million and more to their beer distributors. They will spend because they do have cash that some of their competitors can't afford to spend. Anything to try to keep them on shelves. On the shelf space issue, we were warned by Anson Fredericks, former president of distribution for Budweiser, the whole group, who said this. He said, Bud Light is running out of time and could lose market share forever. Brand will lose retail shelf space to Miller and Coors if they cannot reverse their plunging sales. He warned about this going all the way back to June of 2023, and as sales have really dropped off nationally for Bud Light and the rest of the Anheuser-Busch brands, we have seen reporting that their beer is just not going to be on a lot of shelves the same way that it used to be. This article from Proactive covers the story. Bud Light owner faces shelf space battle from Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank has financial analysts that look at each industry that are important industries for investors. Investors know if the analysts make a good case and explain why a company likely will do well, the stock can go up. If it looks like the company's not going to do well, the stock won't go up. Here's what they say, quote, the key debate is whether or not Anheuser-Busch InBev will retain shelf space in the retail channel when retailers reset. On a recent call, Anheuser-Busch management claimed that only 20% of retailers are expected to reset in the fall of 2023, and a third of them have already completed the process, contrasting with messages from other industry rivals. Because other industry rivals have been explaining, yeah, you know something, we're actually seeing a lot more retailers telling us we're going to be giving you more shelf space because the competitors are what is actually selling to customers. Stores will only stock whatever it is that they can sell. But what this also means is that the resets that are going to continue to happen from other retailers will continue on going through the spring. In the spring, however bad it's been for Bud Light so far, it's going to be much worse in the spring. Of course, when they say 20% of retailers, they don't explain like, oh, are you including Walmart and Walgreens in the same category? Or are you saying 20% of your total sales volume from retailers? It's a very big difference. Either way, it doesn't matter. People are not interested in the beer. They're not going to be seeing sales increase. Bud Light continues to drag down sales for parent company Anheuser-Busch as the world's largest brewer reported a double-digit drop in U.S. revenue last quarter. Anheuser-Busch InBev reported that revenue in the U.S. fell by 13.5% between July and September. The figure was based on revenue per 100 liters, a common measure for beer sales. Sales to U.S. retailers were also down 17%, largely due to a drop in Bud Light demand. And when they say sales were down 17%, they're talking about including Bud Light, yes, but also Budweiser, Stella Artois, all their brands, 17% down. Bud Light has faced months of protest after consumer anger since its ill-fated partnership with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney in April. The company has seen Bud Light sales decline for months. This is what they did to themselves. This is from an article in The Guardian explaining whose idea it was to utilize Dylan Mulvaney, and was it a mistake or was it not a mistake? The idea for Mulvaney's March Madness post came from a Bud Light team member who, quote, wanted to push and make change, says a former Anheuser-Busch employee. The team member was excited to, quote, slowly but surely plant the seeds of inclusion. They rebranded their beer. They took what was a mainstream product with great distribution that was very profitable, in business since 1982, was the #1 beer brand because, of course, it's got to appeal to all sides and all genders and all political persuasions if it's going to be #1. That means anyone and everyone should be able to be eligible to buy it. But they turned it into this. They put Dylan Mulvaney's face on a beer can, did not publicly explain for weeks that Dylan Mulvaney was not their new spokesmodel, and they rebranded themselves to people who would be comfortable jumping into a bathtub with Dylan Mulvaney. This is what they did. They did it on their own, and now they're paying the price for it. The beer is rebranded. There's no boycott going on. There are people that do not want to be associated with this. U.S. retail dollar sales of Bud Light were down 29% in the 4 weeks ending October 21st compared to the same period a year ago, according to Nielsen data compiled by Bump Williams Consulting. They are down nearly 19% for year to date. The reason it's 19% and not 29% year to date is because this promotion only took place April 1st. That's when they completely rebranded and destroyed the Bud Light brand and any other brand that people can recognize as an Anheuser-Busch brand. And why is the revenue only down 29%? Why isn't it down more? Because the entire beer industry went through a period of price increases that customers accepted, and that really saved them. That was just pure luck. In August, Modelo Especial officially triumphed over Bud Light as America's best-selling beer, and Bud Light volume dropped 26.7%. Anheuser-Busch InBev CEO Michael Ducaris said the company is focusing its U.S. marketing on more traditional outlets, like college football and concerts, following the April controversy. The CEO said internal polling shows that 40% of lapsed Bud Light drinkers say they would consider returning to the brand. This is very strange polling. So, for example, just to go over the numbers, if you speak to 100 people, 60% of them, the great majority of them, tell the people from the survey, no, there is no way we're drinking your beer ever again. 40% of the people supposedly say they would consider returning to the brand, not that they're going to buy the beer back. That's the most favorable they could try to present it. The answer is no. Of course, people are not going to go and buy the beer again. If people had no other choice, would those 40%, not the 60, the 40% buy beer if they really wanted beer and there was nothing else being sold? Yeah, if none of their friends saw them buy it, they might buy it. That's what they're trying to say is an accomplishment. Earlier in October, the company announced a multi-year partnership that will make Bud Light the official beer of the UFC, Mixed Martial Arts organization. Bud Light was one of the UFC's original sponsors 15 years ago, long before any of this Dylan Mulvaney stuff. Yes, the UFC did decide to sign up with the Bud Light people, though it wasn't for $100 million as it's been reported. It was for a lot more money than that. But it's not just the money. They want the distribution and the relationships that Anheuser-Busch has. Anheuser-Busch has significant business in China. UFC has limited business in China. They would love to expand in China. Anheuser-Busch has business in South America, they have business in Africa, and not just a little here and a little there. They actually have enough business in Brazil and China that they saved Anheuser-Busch's profitability and its overall revenue from getting destroyed when they blew themselves up in the United States with the Bud Light brand. That's how much business they do in South America and in China. UFC wants a piece of that business, and they're willing to associate with this toxic Bud Light brand to get access to that market. On the revenue that they're getting, according to Bloomberg, and I respect Bloomberg, I think they're putting out good numbers, the multi-year global agreement, which is a 6-year exclusive agreement, is set to begin in January 2024 and will be the mixed martial arts promoter's biggest ever sponsorship, surpassing its $175 million fight kit deal with Crypto.com, according to people familiar with their terms, which means the numbers are good. It's going to be significant money for them, but even more important for UFC, it's going to help distribute UFC in multiple international markets. It's not about the shared values. It's about building UFC and pocketing hundreds of millions of dollars. Anheuser-Busch also announced a $3 million scholarship fund for families of fallen or disabled first responders, another longtime partner of Anheuser-Busch. Another chunk of money they're spending to try to protect their brand. This is money well spent, and if they have the money, they should spend more money than this supporting these heroic people. From Fox Business, Bud Light announces $3 million scholarship pledge to America's fallen or disabled first responders with a powerful impact. Anheuser-Busch is going to accept applications for this through November 26th. Absolutely good idea. They could spend $30 or $300 million on that. Every dollar they spend on that, they know Americans are going to appreciate it. Doesn't mean that Americans are going to buy their beer again, but it means they would appreciate it. That's money well spent. But of course, it's all part of Anheuser-Busch spending. It's now billions and billions of dollars to try to save their stock and save these brands. Ducaris said, the CEO, those efforts are bearing fruit. Anheuser-Busch InBev's total share of the U.S. market, including brands like Michelob Ultra and Busch Light, fell to just over 36% in late April, but has remained there ever since, he said. They have lost market share. It fell to what he says is just over 36% as of late April after the Dylan Mulvaney promotion in the beginning of April. But it hasn't increased, and it's not going to increase because they rebranded themselves to this. This is what Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch means from now on. It's not coming back. Anyone who likes this, and it's fine if that's what you like, that's great. You can get them as a customer. No one else is going to be buying the beer because they're associated with this. Here's what he said. Quote, this gives us some certainty that we're moving in the right direction, Ducaris said on a call with investors. Quote, I don't think we're at a new normal yet, but we have a good grip on what we need to do and how we are proceeding. The issue, though, is as they lose shelf space, they will lose market share. Anson Fredericks explained this really clearly in another interview. What isn't displayed in the beer industry is not sold. They will not keep extra stock in the back. Anheuser-Busch is trying to give distributors, and they've already given them, $150 million worth of incentives for those distributors. There are 500 independent distributors they use to keep extra stock of the beer on as many store shelves as possible. Distributors can't completely control that anyway. It has to be up to the stores to want to stock it. But this company will spend anything to support those distributors because they know even though sales have dropped off around 30% by volume for Bud Light, 25% for Budweiser, they're going to drop much more because if the beer isn't on the shelf, it doesn't matter what promotions they have for that beer. It doesn't matter what coupons they have for that beer. It can't be bought. If it can't be bought because it's not there, then it can't be sold. And that's more market share for them to lose forever. My prediction is they're going to lose more market share over the next year because they don't have the shelf space that they used to have. Now, Anheuser-Busch has announced they're going to spend $1 billion buying back shares in the public market. When companies buy back shares, it's almost like giving people a dividend because the less shares that there are available to be purchased, the higher stock prices tend to go. So they will spend $1 billion over the next year doing that. Bill Gates was trying to help Anheuser-Busch. Of course, he's a globalist. They're globalists. He's trying to help them continue to push their agenda to use their consumer relationships and their business relationships to plant seeds of inclusion. So Bill Gates bought $95 million worth of Anheuser-Busch stock, and Bill Gates has already lost huge sums of money on this failed Bud Light comeback. He's lost around $5-6 million on the $95 million so far. Until the stock is sold, he hasn't actually lost the money, and he has helped them boost the stock price a little bit by buying from people that obviously don't want to own the stock anymore. But now following him, Anheuser-Busch is going to spend $1 billion to try to raise the price of the stock. But they're not just spending $1 billion trying to raise the price of the stock. They're also going to buy back up to $3 billion of the debt that they owe. So that's just those two transactions is $4 billion just to try to improve the value of the company. In addition to the couple of $100 million to UFC, in addition to the $150 million to distributors, in addition to all of these rebates and additional promotions they're doing to consumers to make the price of Bud Light cheaper than water in some cases, or actually even free, all of that money spent, it's got to be a good $4.5 billion just to try to stabilize the company and a couple of their brands. Efforts to try to win back customers are taking a toll on their profits, with U.S. pre-tax earnings down 29% in the third quarter. The CEO said about 2/3 of that decline was due to lower sales and 1/3 was due to increased spending on marketing and payments to support wholesalers. Because if you recall, Anheuser-Busch said they would triple their marketing to try to promote their beer as much as they could. If they don't do this extra spending, distributors will not carry their beer. If distributors don't carry their beer, of course not all, but some, if some distributors don't carry their beer because it's just not selling, they permanently lose more and more market share. Globally, Anheuser-Busch InBev said revenue rose 5% to about $15.6 billion, and adjusted earnings increased 4.1% because of worldwide price increases on their beer. They said volumes fell 3.4% in the quarter, hurt by a wet, chilly summer in Northern Europe. The company said sales volumes were up in South America, Asia, and Africa. InBev's net income rose 4% to $5.4 billion, or 86 cents per share. That was ahead of the 84 cents Wall Street expected, according to FactSet. Bud Light's historic decline came after it partnered with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney for a marketing campaign. In the controversial promotion, Mulvaney posted a video on April 1st of Mulvaney cracking open a Bud Light can on Instagram. Mulvaney showed off the customized can with Mulvaney's face on it, one of many corporate freebies Mulvaney gets, and promoted to millions of followers. And that can was produced by Anheuser-Busch, their own in-house marketing department. They completely approved of the promotion and sent the can knowing this would happen. Bud Light was accused of alienating their traditional customer base by partnering with Mulvaney, which led to many conservatives and normal people, including Kid Rock, to boycott the brand. Conservatives have continued with the boycott, leading the Belgium-based brewer to place two executives responsible for the partnership, Alyssa Heinerscheid, Vice President of Marketing for Bud Light, and her boss, Daniel Blake, on leave as of April. We still haven't heard, and it's now been 6 months, if they're coming back to the company or what happened. Supposedly, they put them on leave because the independent distributors were absolutely furious. The independent distributors have all also lost tons and tons of money. They've been laying people off. They've been losing, in some cases, millions of dollars, losing customers, creating friction with their customers, all over this nonsensical, ridiculous Dylan Mulvaney promotion. The beer giant's PR disaster went from bad to worse when it swiftly broke off the contract with Mulvaney, and former Bud Light employees accused leaders of cowardice for failing to support Mulvaney. Of course, Mulvaney complained there wasn't enough support after the controversy, but of course, who was going to support Mulvaney? The marketing teams, Alyssa Heinerscheid, her boss, they were all removed. They all just disappeared out of the company. There was no one left to even call Mulvaney. Mulvaney also claimed to be afraid to leave the house, but apparently wasn't afraid to go travel to California to be at the Tony Awards and take pictures with Tony the Tiger. Anheuser-Busch CEO Ducaris said in August during an earnings call that the company plans to provide financial support to U.S. wholesalers, which they have done, through the end of December to make up for lost Bud Light sales. He also said internal polling shows that 80% of U.S. consumers remain favorable or neutral towards the brand. They can do whatever polling they want to do. That's absolutely not the case. It's completely obvious. You can look in your local supermarket. You'll see how much Bud Light and Budweiser product is just stacked up to the ceiling. They still can't move it. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.